From peasant to king, discover medieval Irish food at midnight. The shocking truth. As the wind howled through the ancient stone streets of Kilkenny, a fire flickered ominously in the darkened tavern, casting twisted shadows on the walls. Inside, rumors spread like wildfire, whispers of a hidden legacy that linked the simplest peasant to the most royal of feasts. It was said that at the stroke of midnight, the whispers of Celtic ancestors would awaken, revealing the secrets of long-forgotten recipes that could transform ordinary lives into extraordinary ones. Would anyone dare to uncover what lay beneath the surface of nightly revelries? With clay mugs in hand, laughter spilled from patrons around the flickering light, but their eyes danced with intrigue. Gathered closely, they leaned in as one brave soul spoke of the fabled midnight banquet, where boiled lamb and sweet honey cakes intertwined with darker tales of betrayal and treachery. Legend had it that those who tasted the food would awaken with either a king's fortune or be forever cursed to toil in the dirt. This was not just dinner, it was a gamble, a leap into the eerie unknown that tugged at their courage. As clock struck 12, an unnatural silence fell, leaving only the crackle of the fire and the rhythmic tapping of a single foot. Hearts raced, breaths quickened. It felt as if the very walls held their breath. What was hidden in this ancient night? Even the bravest men looked over their shoulders, eyes wide with a mix of fear and excitement, waiting for the unseen guests to arrive. What would they have to say? What chilling revelation stirred in the shadows? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The atmosphere shifted abruptly as the door creaked open, revealing a cloaked figure casting an eerie silhouette against the glow. Gasps echoed through the room, and the air thickened with anticipation. What did this stranger bring? Was it knowledge, a curse, or something worse? All eyes turned, locked onto the newcomer. The whispers morphed into anxiety. Had the time finally come to unveil the truth behind midnight's offerings? The moment hung heavy, pregnant with possibilities. The tavern's very essence trembled, holding secrets of childhood dreams and dark nights. What awaited them all? What reality would emerge when the clock struck again? The cloaked figure stepped into the flickering light, and gasps turned into murmurs, rippling through the crowd like an electric charge. The man, or was it a woman? Hard to tell behind that thick, hooded cloak, advanced slowly. Each footfall seemed deliberate, echoing off the stone walls and adding to the mounting tension. Who dares disturb the midnight hour? The voice, low and gravelly, sent shivers down spines. It was unlike any accent they recognized, thick with the weight of ages. Patrons exchanged nervous glances, the boldness of their earlier bravado slipping away like sand through clenched fingers. What brings you here at this hour? One man ventured, his voice wavering. The figure lifted a bony finger, silencing the room. I come with a gift and a warning, the stranger announced, purposefully drawing out each word as if etching them onto their very souls. Chilled silence enveloped the tavern. The only sound was the crackling fire, its warmth now feeling distant and fragile. What could this person possibly offer? Why did it feel like a threat wrapped in an invitation? Suddenly, the stranger's hands emerged from the cloak, revealing two dingy wooden bowls, steaming with an intoxicating aroma. The rich scent of spiced lamb and honey wafted toward the crowd, pulling them closer, almost hypnotically. Gasps of hunger mixed with fear echoed around the room. Feast upon these dishes, the stranger continued, for they hold the power of your fate. The patrons stared at the bowls in rapt attention. But heed my words! To partake is to challenge destiny. You may find fortune or a curse that entwines your soul with darkness. Nervously, the crowd whispered among themselves, uncertainty buzzing like an angry hornet. What if we refuse? Someone questioned. The figure chuckled, a sound filled with mirthlessness. There is no refusing what is fated. For many moons your ancestors have sacrificed for this moment. The choice rests not with me, but within each of you. The tension in the room thickened. Would anyone dare to partake? The finality of curiosity weighed on their decision. Risk the doom of a curse or perhaps seize a rare opportunity? Hearts raced, pulses quickened. After what seemed like an eternity, a young man, bold yet foolish, stood up. I'll taste it. His voice broke the spell, and a hush fell over the tavern. The others stared in horror and disbelief. As he reached for the bowl, a cold gust swept through the tavern suddenly, extinguishing the fire for just a heartbeat. The shadows crept closer, seeking to devour the light. Eyes widened as fear coated the air. But the young man, undeterred, scooped a morsel of the spiced lamb and stuffed it into his mouth. Laughter and cheers erupted from some, while others exclaimed in terror. Without warning, the figure stepped back. So it begins! They cried, voice that sounded both amused and ominous. The tavern's whispers now morphed into a mad frenzy, alarm clashing with fascination. Every eye turned toward the young man as he chewed, anticipation thick and heavy. As the clock struck the next hour, the air grew still. In an instant, the young man's face twisted from delight to confusion, then froze in sheer terror. What choice had he made? With a flicker of light and a surge of wind, shadows swirled around him, and the tavern collectively held its breath. What was to come of him? Would he become a king, or would he disappear into the abyss forever? The cloaked figure's lips curled into a smirk, and they whispered, "And now, the truth is unveiled." But what truth? What had the young man stumbled upon in the banquet of fate? The young man's eyes widened, filled with a deepening dread as the shadows whipped around him. A low, guttural chant began to rise from the depths of the tavern, echoing off walls that seemed to close in, shifting and vibrating with the intensity of that very moment. The flickering flames of the hearth illuminated the scene in an eerie glow, a grotesque dance of light and dark that brought an almost tangible weight to the air. "The fate is sealed!" cried the cloaked figure, their voice booming over the rising panic. The patrons trembled, eyes wide, their breaths shallow as they watched the young man tremble, caught in the tempest of his decision. "Someone stop this!" A woman shrieked, her voice slicing through the mounting chaos. She grasped her child's arm tightly as if that would shield them from whatever fate awaited. But it was too late. The shadows closed in around the young man, seizing hold of his body, wrapping him in dark tendrils that seemed to pulse with life. "What have I done?" he gasped, mouth agape, as fear spilled from him in floods. The rich, savory taste of the lamb turned to ash on his tongue, the spices now acrid as he fought against the suffocating dark. Suddenly, without warning, the shadows ripped apart, revealing the young man standing alone, but transformed. His clothes shifted, fine linen replacing the rough fabric of his work-worn tunic. A crown, a regal circlet of shimmering gold, appeared upon his brow, gleaming through the chaos. Gasps echoed throughout the tavern, 100 pairs of eyes blinked in disbelief. Then came a voice from within the shadows. It spoke to him directly. "You sought power, and power shall you have, but this crown bears the weight of sacrifices undone." His heart raced, a mix of elation and terror. King? What price was there to be paid? The audience seemed frozen, each breath a whispered prayer, every heart teetering on the brink of fate. "Fate has turned its wheel," the cloaked figure declared, the edge of their voice tinged with menace. "His soul shall now bear the legacy of choices made, for every king comes with a blood price." "What does that mean?" someone cried from the back, the question hanging thick in the air, heavy as a stone. "What must he pay?" The figure shrugged, the movement shadowy and unsettling beneath the hood. "Only time will reveal the truth. This is but the beginning. In Destiny's banquet, every feast has its shadows." The young man's face crumpled, confusion bubbling within. "What shadows?" he shouted into the chaos. But the cloaked figure merely smiled, their eyes glinting with a predatory light. In an instant, the shadows pulled away, leaving him stripped of the crown but still radiating an aura of authority. Whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. Was he truly king, or had the curse only begun? Resentment bubbled as uncertainty turned to anger. "Tell us the truth!" someone roared. Others joined the cry, fear blurring with the desperate need for answers. But the cloaked figure merely raised a hand, silencing them, their eyes glinting with a dark knowledge. "The truth you seek cannot change what has already happened. The fates have been sown into your lives, and the next cut awaits." The room erupted into chaos, the patrons stumbling to their feet, eyes darting as the reality of the moment hit harder than any blow. Then, without warning, the cloaked figure turned and began to retreat back into the shadows, their laughter echoing like thunder. "Wait! Don't go!" the young man shouted, the words gripping in his throat. Just as he began to move, his foot slipped into the grip of destiny. Suddenly, the wooden floors of the tavern trembled beneath them, a low rumbling growl rising from the depths of the earth. "What now?" someone gasped, panic thick in their voice as the ground shook violently. And with a final flick of the figure's cloak, darkness surged outwards, swallowing the light whole. As screams mingled with shadows, the last words whispered from the cloaked figure hung suspended in the suffocating silence. "When dawn breaks, who will stand to bear the burdens of what you have unleashed? What new horrors awaited them? Would they face their destinies as nobles or be consumed forever in the dark?" The answers hung like the fallen embers of the extinguished fire, smoldering in the night, waiting to blaze anew. A deafening silence engulfed the tavern, the echoes of chaos melted into a heavy stillness. The young man's heart raced, pounding against his chest like a caged bird desperate for freedom. The weight of the cloaked figure's words compounded like stones within his gut, each one dragging him deeper into an abyss of uncertainty. Who was he? What had he just unleashed? Around him, the patrons clutched their tables, wide-eyed and gasping for air, as if the very sound of the world had been sucked away. The flickering flames danced frantically, a desperate attempt to fend off the shadows creeping closer, invading every corner of their once haven. The young man stepped forward, half aware of the fear gripping the crowd. "We need to find the cloaked figure. They must know. What does this mean?" His voice wavered, barely slicing through the thick tension. As if summoned by his plea, a gust of wind howled through the tavern, extinguishing the flames in a flash of darkness. A murmur rippled through the shocked assembly. Eyes darted nervously. Their surroundings felt suddenly unfamiliar, more a darkened chrysalis than a home. "Look!" a man shouted, pointing towards a window. Panic-riddled faces turned towards the glass, where shadows swirled outside like a storm ready to break. A silvery moon peeked through, casting a ghostly light, and all eyes widened in horror as forms began to materialize. Twisted shapes danced along the periphery of their view, lurking just beyond the thresholds of their reality. "What are they?" a child whimpered, clinging tightly to his mother, who knelt to shield him with her body. The young man swallowed hard, a lump forming in his throat. "I don't know," he whispered, the weight of responsibility madness pressing down like chains. It was as if the realm of the living and the dead had begun to intertwine, and he could feel the pulsing pull of both blossoming within him, a giddy and terrifying union. With dread knotting in his stomach, he turned towards the tavern's entrance, determined to confront whatever darkness awaited him. "We can't just sit here. We have to respond." The crowd shifted uneasily, uncertainty written on every face. "But if you go, you may never return," one elderly woman warned, eyes glistening with concern. "This is my choice," he declared, grounding himself in the chaos. "We face what comes together, or we hide in fear and let it consume us." His voice, tinged with a newfound authority, rallied the crowd. Hesitation faded like the smoke from the extinguished fire. One by one, they moved closer, the weight of their shared anxiety igniting a flicker of bravery. Outside, the swirling shadows pressed against the tavern walls, whispering secrets only they could hear. The night was alive with menace, the air thick with tension, and each heartbeat echoed louder as they stood united. The young man took a deep breath, and with one last look back at the terrified faces behind him, steeled himself as he stepped toward the door. The wood creaked ominously as he opened it wide, shadows curling and twisting at the threshold. What lay beyond was a chasm of darkness, a realm filled with the unseen, brimming with threats and secrets. He felt the chill of their presence wrap around him, a shiver dancing down his spine. As he crossed the threshold, the shadows slithered closer, whispering promises of power and doom as he advanced forward. In that moment, something deep within him trembled in anxious anticipation. What shadows will reveal themselves? He murmured, gripping the handle tighter, his pulse quickening, and then, just as he began to venture forth into the darkness, an earth-shattering roar erupted from the depths of the night, sending a shockwave through the ground beneath them. "Run!" cried out a voice amidst the cacophony. But it was too late. The cloaked figure's laughter echoed hauntingly once more, intertwining with the roar. "What price shall you pay for the veil to fall, young king?" As the ground quaked and the air thickened, the young man wondered, would he dare to discover the full cost of his destiny, or would he lose everything he dared to fight for? The roar that disrupted the night didn't fade. It expanded, a living entity that wrapped around the young man like a serpent tightening its grip. Hearts paused, breaths were stilled, and the darkness thickened, almost sentient, coiling around him. He squared his shoulders, feeling the weight of the world pressing against him. "We need to move. Now!" he shouted, urgency erupting from his core. The tavern patrons hesitated at the doorway, fear etched on their faces. The shadows whispered louder, dark promises of despair rumbling through the air. "Are you sure?" a voice trembled in the crowd. "It could be a trap." The young man turned back, meeting frightened eyes that flickered with shared worry, and he felt a surge of connection. "If we don't step forward, we won't get the answers we seek," he replied, voice steady despite his quivering heart. With an unexpected roar from the depths of the night, the shadows surged, breaking against the tavern walls like a tide. They writhed and twisted, forming grotesque shapes, stretching sinewy limbs toward him. The etched patterns of fear on the patrons' faces screamed louder than the echoes of the cloaked figure's laughter. One by one, they edged forward, some still clinging to their tables in paralyzed dread, while others summoned a flicker of courage. Together, they moved slowly into the inky night, the flickering light of determination barely illuminating their path. Each step sent tremors through their bones as they ventured beyond the safety of wood and hearth. The air felt electric, crackling with an intensity that sent jolts through the young man's body. Shadows darted around him, fragments of nightmares materializing, and a piercing howl cut through the air, chilling him to the bone. Their feet crunched over gravel, a mix of anxiety and adrenaline coursing through their veins. Just ahead, a grotesque shape began to emerge, its form contorting in the silvery moonlight. The sight twisted in his gut, an unholy creature with elongated limbs and glowing eyes that seemed to see right into his soul. "What is that?" a young woman gasped, clutching her companion's arm. "Whatever it is, we can't let it deter us," the young man replied, each word laced with determination. "We must find that figure who started this." As if in response, the howl crescendoed, and out from the shadowed edges of the clearing came flashes, fiery wisps, ethereal shapes darting around, each carrying fragments of voices echoing ancient fears. The woods behind them echoed with a distinct clamor, wild and ravenous, calling out from the depths of despair. "Help us!" a tiny voice cried. Panic erupted as the group spun toward the sound, hearts pleading for mercy. The young man surged forward, propelled by an unyielding force. The night swallowed his terror and spiked his anticipation. "Stay close," he barked, desperation fueling his command. "We will not abandon anyone." A rogue wind blasted past him, carrying shadows like dark feathers across his path, echoes of lost souls desperately reaching out, each swirl igniting the air with overwhelming sorrow. He tripped, only barely regaining his footing as the urgency of the moment weighed heavily in his chest, a reminder of the stakes at hand. "Is this truly worth it?" a voice whispered in his mind, doubt creeping into his thoughts like a slow poison. But as he looked back at his companions, each face illuminated by determination and fear, the answer became all too clear. They pressed on, diving deeper into the unknown. The shadows twisted, the night hummed, and the world felt alive with spirits both ancient and vengeful. They rounded a bend, and just ahead, a figure flickered into view, the cloaked figure, standing in the center of an ominous ring of shimmering lights. "Welcome, brave souls," it murmured, voice equal parts honey and poison. His heart hammered against his ribs, the questions tumbling around in his mind. What price would they truly pay? Welcome indeed, he echoed weakly, sensing the gravity of the moment. Shadows spilled around them like a lost chorus, as they drew closer to the center of this ancient web of fate. But unbeknownst to them all, the very ground beneath the figure began to tremble again with malevolent energy, and a low rumble echoed in the distance, a harbinger of the chaos that was about to unfold. What lay ahead, just beyond the reach of mystery, was ripe with dangers untold, and the young man felt, deep in his bones, that the true battle was just beginning. Would he stand firm against the rising tide, or was he destined to drown in the darkness? The young man's heart raced as he took a step closer to the cloaked figure, darkness swirling around them like a tempest. Its hood obscured its features, but the air pulsed around it, vibrating with a power that felt both alluring and terrifying. Behind him, the others shifted nervously. The young woman who had gasped moments earlier gripped the arm of her companion so tightly her knuckles turned white. He shot her a comforting glance, but even he could feel the unseen weight of dread pressing against them. "Who are you?" he demanded, trying to project strength over the tremors in his voice. The figure chuckled softly, the sound like dry leaves rustling in a dead autumn wind. "A harbinger, if you will," it replied, the words dripping with mockery. "A guide to those brave enough or foolish enough to seek the truth." The young man exchanged worried glances with his companions. Each face mirrored the same twisted mix of fear and resolve. "And what truth is that?" he pressed, determination scrambling to wrestle down the creeping dread in his throat. At that moment, the ground quaked violently beneath them, sending fissures snaking through the soil. The shimmering lights danced closer, circling the figure like trapped fireflies, illuminating dark secrets hovering just out of reach. "Truth is power," it hissed, its voice dropping an octave. "In this world, knowledge can save you or destroy you, and trust me, there are far darker forces than I that wish to keep you ignorant." A rumbling growl echoed in the distance, rippling through the trees. The shadows around them became more animated, twisting and snapping, alive with hunger. "Listen!" shouted one of the patrons, pointing towards the trees. "It's not just the shadows. Something is coming." Tension sliced through the air as they turned to face the woods, a cascade of rustling leaves heralding an unseen menace. Moments later, the underbrush erupted. Dark shapes surged toward them, monstrous forms that seemed to emerge from every shadow. Gnarled branches reached out like skeletal fingers, and ghastly snarls filled the night. "Run!" someone screamed, but the command barely pierced the veil of panic that settled over them like a thick fog. "Not yet," the cloaked figure insisted, raising an arm. The lights flared brighter, casting an otherworldly glow on the chaos unfolding before them. One by one, the monstrous shapes froze, hesitating as if caught in a web of light. "Let me show you the real faces of your fears," the figure crooned, its voice a siren's song. With a flick of its wrist, shadows spiraled around, forming images of horrors most intimate, old betrayals, whispered lies, and heart-wrenching losses. The young man felt the air thicken as memories clawed their way to the surface. Pain shot through him, his father's disappointed gaze, the heartbreak of friendships shattered. It was as if the very darkness knew their innermost wounds and was now stripping them bare. "No!" he gasped, shaking his head furiously. "Stop this!" The forest came alive with raw energy, shadows swirling violently, images flickering like a nightmare on replay. It was overwhelming. "Face your fears. Only then can you learn the truth that lies beneath," the figure shouted, voice reverberating like thunder. But as he braced himself against the onslaught, another howl erupted from the darkness, a sound unlike the others, a call laced with longing and fury. The ground trembled fiercely beneath them again, this time like a heartbeat growing stronger. Fear gripped him as he realized something was fighting back against the shadows. Something ancient, and just when he thought he might collapse under the weight of terror, the shimmering lights pulsed once more, tethering him to a glimmer of hope. He could rally them, guide their fear into strength, but was it already too late? "Together!" he shouted, looking at his companions, eyes blazing with determination. "We need to fight back. This isn't just about us anymore. As they formed a ragged circle, hearts beating as one, the cloaked figure's gaze bore into him with a mix of malice and admiration. Very well, it hissed. Let us see if the light can truly pierce through this darkness, or if it will falter and fall. The encroaching shadows closed in, but his heart raced with adrenaline stirring hope drowned in desperation. What forces were they unleashing now? The battle was at hand, and the truth still lay wrapped in shadows, but one question simmered just below the chaos. As they faced their deepest fears, who among them would emerge unscathed? The shadows lunged, a mass of writhing darkness, closing in on the group. Adrenaline surged through the young man's veins, igniting a fire within him, while the chilling howl echoed in the background, clawing at their resolve. Focus! He yelled. He could feel the presence of his friends, trembling yet resolute. They weren't just faces in the night, they were his lifeline. We need to fight these shadows with everything we have. Beside him, the young woman, her face pale, nodded. I can feel them trying to drag me down. We can't let them win. Her voice ignited a spark in the others. They nestled closer together, forming a barrier against the approaching darkness. The cloaked figure watched, an unfathomable smile tugging at the corners of its lips. Then let the battle begin, it murmured, almost gleefully. With that, the shadows lunged again, but this time, they weren't met with screams or panic. They encountered the defiance of three hearts beating as one. The young man raised his hand, channeling all his energy into a singular thought. Light! He screamed, projecting that desperate hope toward the darkness. In response, a wave of shimmering light poured from his palm, and instantly it surged outward. The shadows recoiled and hissed, their forms shifting as they battled against the unseen force flooding the air. Together! His friend shouted, a steady edge of confidence rising in her voice. She grabbed his arm, and the bonds surged like electricity. One by one, they joined hands, their connection creating a tether of light. The shadows writhed and snapped, swirling like a maelstrom, the howling intensified. Yet amidst the chaos, they began to shift. Some retreated, recoiling from the illumination swirling around them. The cloaked figure stood apart, amusement simmering in its darkened eyes. Impressive, but does your light hold the secrets you seek? Shut up! The young woman growled, a fierce new intensity in her voice. We're not afraid of you or this darkness. With their spirits intertwined, the young man felt a pulse of energy radiate from their circle, amplifying with every heartbeat, growing stronger. Yet the figure's laughter sliced through the air. Then embrace it. A truth buried deeper than you know awaits one which may break you. Suddenly, the darkness writhed with newfound rage. It exploded outward, claws snatching in all directions. The ground groaned, shifting like a restless beast. Their hands shook, gripping tightly, a bond on the verge of snapping under the weight of the void. Don't let go! He shouted, squeezing harder, channeling every ounce of his being into that collective light as it pulsated brighter, a beacon crying for survival. Tendrils of shadow clawed at his thoughts, dredging up the buried fears that had once chained him. He could almost feel his father's disapproval creep back in, the weight of failures stacking against him. But just then, warmth flooded through him, reflecting the determination of those beside him. No fear could seep into this bond. A crushing roar echoed, vibrating through the earth below. The young man looked up, and his heart froze. The shadows were shifting, but not to flee. They twisted and morphed, forming something colossal, a dark beast rising from the depths of the forest. What the hell is that? Someone gasped. My God, he breathed, terror gripping him once more. The creature towered, its eyes glinting with unholy light, full of malice and hunger. The cloaked figure stepped back, and in that moment, it felt as if everything balanced on the edge of a knife. Now you face the true manifestation of your fears, ready to fight? The young man steadied his breath, eyes locked on the horror before them. They could feel their unity slip, the darkness shouting doubts that sought to unravel the light. No longer just a fight for survival, it was a fight for the truth. When the young man vowed not to lose. But as the creature surged forward, its roar drowning out their rallying cries, he couldn't help but wonder, could their bond withstand the truth buried in shadow? Would they be the ones to unravel the darkness, or would they all be consumed? Fear clutched at the young man's chest as the dark creature lunged, its massive form barreling toward them, a nightmare come to life. He had never felt such a heavy sense of dread, the kind that made every breath seem like a struggle against overwhelming hopelessness. His friends' faces were painted with terror, yet there was something else brewing beneath that fear, a determination that pulsed with the light they had forged together. "Stand your ground," he shouted, mustering every ounce of courage as the beast drew nearer, its blood-curdling roar vibrating in his bones like an earthquake. "Together!" they called out, their hands wrapped tightly. The tether of light flared, but the creature countered, a powerful shadow that threatened to consume not just their light, but their very resolve. The cloaked figure watched with an unnerving confidence, its voice dripping with malice. "Do you really think your light can withstand such darkness? Each of you holds your own demons. Do you dare face them?" In an instant, the shadows thickened, swirling around the beast, each tendril dancing like fingers beckoning from an abyss. The young man's heart raced, spiraling into memories of regrets and failures. The words of his father echoed ominously in his mind, a harsh reminder of all he had never achieved. Doubt wormed its way through him like a coiling snake, but his friends, he could feel their strength, a lifeline against the despair. What if we can't do this?" A voice trembled, filled with uncertainty. The young woman's grip tightened, her eyes fierce. "We do this together. We hold the light." Their combined resolve sparked, and the luminescence surged, stronger than before, driving back the dark tendrils momentarily. The creature faltered, an eerie screech spilling from its maw. But it wasn't enough. The shadows, sensing their agony, pulled back only to strike with renewed ferocity. "Don't let the darkness in," he urged, his voice filled with urgency. They had to remember who they were beyond the fears that clawed at them. Just as he prepared to push against the tide of despair, he caught a glimpse of the cloaked figure, its grin widening, almost hungry with anticipation. "Can you sense it?" the figure taunted, voice silky and smooth. "The weight of truth that lies beneath your skin, the secret that binds your hearts? Yours alone, it could destroy you all." With a guttural roar, the beast lunged again as shadowy arms reached for him, threatening to pull him into its ravenous maw. Panic surged, but he could feel the pulsing light around him. It was stronger, powered by the bonds of friendship unbreakable. "Push it back with everything you have," he yelled, throwing every ounce of strength into the light. Bright sparks ignited as their collective energy cascaded forth, clashing with the creature's darkness. For a moment, it felt as though the very fabric of reality shifted, light clashing against shadow, will against despair. But just as they began to gain ground, the creature unleashed a devastating roar that sliced through their defensive shield, sending them sprawling back. The world spun in disarray. Alarm bells rang in his head as he struggled to regain his footing. Dread pooled within him. Had they lost everything? Glimmers of realization sparked inside him. "We can't just fight the shadows," he shouted desperately. "We need to confront the truth behind them." What truth? Was he ready to face his deepest fears? As he fought to regain his composure, he realized that the answer lay within the darkened depths of their struggle. The beast surged toward them again, but in that frantic moment, they could either fall to despair or dare to stand and face what the darkness wanted to show them. Would they find the strength to embrace the truth, or would they be lost forever in the depths of their own fears? The ground shook as the creature lunged, sending shockwaves through their bodies. The young man fought to reclaim his footing, but panic clawed at his throat. Shadows churned, growing thicker, brighter with the promise of despair. The cloaked figure smirked, watching, waiting, as if savoring the terror that swirled around them. "Face your fears," it taunted, the voice chilling and smooth. "What truth do you think awaits you in the depths? Will you dare to look?" In that blinding moment of chaos, the young man could feel the tendrils of fear coiling upon his heart, squeezing tightly. Memories fought to surface, all the moments he had felt hopeless, all the times he had failed to live up to expectation. Secrets long buried cried out for attention. "Do not listen!" the young woman shouted, her voice trembling yet fierce. "Together, remember who we are." Her words struck a chord, resonating inside him like a call to arms. They had faced challenges before, they had overcome them with courage. But now, that courage felt supremely hard to grasp. Each of the friends was standing on the brink, ready to dive into the abyss of their own truths. Suddenly, the creature lunged again, sending a darkened wave crashing toward them. "Can you feel the weight of denial?" it shrieked. "Can you bear the truth of your existence? Fight back!" he urged, grasping tighter to his friend's hands. Together, they formed a circle, pooling the light they had forged through mutual sacrifice and love. The brightness stirred, responding to their unity, but the creature's haunting cry pierced deeper, distracting them from their strength. The young man turned, instantly locking eyes with the cloaked figure. "What do you know of us?" he shouted, the growing rage helping to fend off the creeping shadows. "More than you can fathom, my friend," the figure replied, a gleam of malice dancing in its eyes. "You might hold on to each other now, but when the truth of despair unravels, it will strip you bare. You will see how fragile your bonds really are." As the creature howled again with a deafening force, the shadows surged forward, attempting to steal their light. The grip of darkness seemed unyielding, reality bending around them like a twisted nightmare. Despair hung thick in the air, suffocating and oppressive. Then, behind the panic, he felt it, the truth waiting for them, secret and heavy. The courage he sought was not outside in the light, but within the darkness that coiled around them. Wasn't that what they had always done, confront the fears that threatened them? "Focus on your truths," he cried out, searching the eyes of his friends. "This is our choice. We can do this." One by one, they shifted their gaze inward, confronting their deepest fears: regret, abandonment, failure, and shame. And with every whisper of honesty, their light grew stronger, starting to burn brightest where darkness crept the closest. Together, a fire ignited amongst them, illuminating the shadows. "This is who we are," they thundered, voices rising in unison. "We know what we are capable of." But as the collective light expanded, the shadows shrank, and the creature let out a scream filled with agony. The cloaked figure's smile faltered, just for a moment. That flicker of uncertainty revealed a glimmer of hope, but darkness wasn't done with them yet. With a guttural roar, the creature launched itself at them one last time. "You think you've won?" it bellowed, rage rippling through its form. "This is only the beginning." The young man's heart raced. Their fight was far from over, but they had taken a stand. It was time for the final confrontation, the moment they had to choose to embrace the truth or let it consume them. As the looming shadow charged, each heartbeat drummed a question louder than the last. Could they truly face the ultimate horror hidden in their depths, or would they be consumed by what they discovered? The creature barreled forward, its monstrous shape blending with the shadows that surrounded them like a storm. Fear surged through the young man, but with it came a resolve that steadied his heart. "Together!" he shouted, the command ringing with a sense of fierce purpose. The friends drew closer, their hands clenching tighter around each other. The flickering light of their bond began to hum, glowing brighter than before, illuminating their fears with the radiance of truth. For every fear they uncovered, every regret, disappointment, and betrayal, they harnessed a burst of power. They faced the creature head-on, defiance lighting up their faces. The young woman, fierce and unwavering, spoke first. "I've feared never being enough, I've doubted my worth. But no more." With a surge of light, her voice rallied the others. "I've feared failure," chimed in another friend. "But from every misstep, I've learned to stand again." Energy pulsed through their connection, scattering dark tendrils that reached for them. "I feared losing you all," he cried, casting his doubts into the vortex. "But love is stronger than any shadow." The light expanded, a radiant force pushing against the encroaching darkness. The creature recoiled, roaring in agony, its form distorting as the brilliance escalated. Each declaration strengthened the tether among them, drawing upon their shared human experience. "I've faced betrayal, abandoned belief in myself," another voice echoed. "But that doesn't define my future." "Together!" they cried, and with every person shouting a truth, the darkness hissed and shrunk back, feral and wounded. The cloaked figure watched, its smile fading as the luminous force grew. You think this is enough? Have you truly faced the depth of your darkness? Yes, shouted the young man. With unity we find truth. Together we stand tall, unharmed by what we've uncovered. As if reborn, their light erupted into an incandescent wave. The shadows writhed frantically, swirling as the creatures struggled against their bolstered bond. Fate cannot consume those who dare to know themselves. He lifted his chin, a new dawning of strength pouring forth. We are not simply vessels of our past, we are the architects of our future. The shadows, still unwilling to relent, surged one last time. But the radiant light enveloped them, casting them aside like dry leaves. With every heart united, the darkness dissolved, broken by the brilliance of their shared truths. As the creature's form collapsed inward, vanishing under the might of their bond, the cloaked figure's demeanor shifted. The corner of its mouth twitched with admiration, or was it fear? You've beaten the darkness, but every light casts a shadow before the creature could reform. The fire of their light surged through the air, striking the cloaked figure's cloak, illuminating its ancient face. Shadows morphed around it, revealing the longing eyes of those who had sacrificed yet remained trapped in the twilight of regret. But the figure faltered. You have seen the darkness a king must face, it rasped. With triumph comes the burden of truth. Momentarily overwhelmed by uncertainty, the young man looked at his friends, solid support in the flickering light. But we will bear it together. In that pivotal moment, the echo of laughter and shadows dissolved into a soft whisper. The cloaked figure revealed a truth behind its disguise, a soul forged by the burdens it carried. With a slight nod, it receded further into the swirling depths. We shall meet again when shadows need bearing. As dawn broke over Kilkenny, light poured in through the trees, casting away remnants of the night. Breaths steadied, hearts aligned in a newfound rhythm. The young man felt lighter as he turned to his companions. Look! One exclaimed, pointing to where the sun painted the horizon in gilded hues, and for the first time, they saw hope, the promise of new beginnings. With hands unclenching, the friends stood together, embracing as a wave of relief washed upon them. They had faced the darkness, and they had emerged, lights shining bright against the expanse of the morning sky. There was a sweetness in their triumph, a testament to every truth learned from their fears, and as they walked back toward the tavern, laughter broke like dawn, echoing against the stone walls, intertwining with the fresh start of a day illuminated by their victory. Kilkenny stood renewed, forever marked by their courage. The young man glanced back just once, the air stirring with the memory of shadows but leaving behind a calm sense of resolve. Together they had unveiled not just the feast of shadows but the banquet of life waiting to be devoured. Make sure to carry this strength with you, dear friends, and remember the shadows will always linger, but as long as you lean into the light together, you will never be lost. Now, before you go, listen closely. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next tales of courage and bravery. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and help us reach more amazing people. Flood the comments section with your thoughts about the ending. Let's hear your theories. And don't wait even one more second. Share this journey with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything, and we can't wait to see you on the next adventure.